Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. Today's episode is the third annual Christmas Gab Bag that I did with George from the Meanwhile at the podcast. However, this Gab Bag was recorded and put out on the Meanwhile at the podcast feed first. So previous Gab Bag episodes, the first two were done on this feed, on the Longbox Review podcast feed. But George asked if he could do this on his show, and so I was a guest on his show to do this Gab Bag episode, and we talk about 3 Christmas comics apiece, continuing that tradition that we have, that annual tradition that we have. So what you're going to hear next is the episode as it was recorded for Meanwhile at the podcast. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you had a great Christmas holiday and New Year's as well. And I'll leave you with Happy New Year, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Meanwhile at the podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meanwhile at the Podcast, the show that wants to remind you that as of the date of this show dropping, there are only 363 days left till Christmas. Don't forget, 2020 is a leap year. I'm George.
And I'm Eric.
And we hope you had a fantastic holiday and enjoyed all the Hallmark Channel countdown to Christmas movies, with the last one of the 2019 season premiering tonight, December 28th. New Year, new me. Be there. I pity the fool who won't be there. But I digress. As you could probably hear from the laughing in the background and the gentleman who introduced himself at the beginning of the show, Rodney and Kristen are not here. They're covering for Santa on his Naughty is Not Nice podcast while he is on vacation in the tropics. So on this very special episode, we called in, hot off his guest appearance on episode 20, my friend and yours, Eric from Longbox Review. Eric, welcome back, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, George. As always, it's a pleasure to get together with you and talk about comic books, and especially when this will be the third time we've done this, our annual tradition now, of getting together.
Why don't you explain to everybody what this is?
Yeah, so we get together, and like I said, we've done this 2 years previous, and now we're doing it for the third year, only on Meanwhile the podcast instead of the Longbox Review podcast. But this is our Christmas Gab Bag episode, where we get together and talk about some Christmas or Christmas adjacent comic books.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is something that and George and I were talking about this before we started recording, but this is something that we both look forward to every year. So when the weather starts turning cold, George, the leaves are off the trees, maybe we have a dusting of snow, then these not so young men's thoughts turn to Christmas comic books.
Ah, yes, Christmas comic books. Gotta love them. And you did mention this is our third time doing this, and as everybody knows, our show started in May of this year. So how could we have possibly done 2 others prior to this, unless we did them in the summertime, Christmas in July? No, we did them on Eric's show. So Eric, please tell us about your show.
Well, it's like I said, it's the Long Box Review podcast, where I talk about all those things that come out of the long boxes, all those comic books that I love to read, and sometimes I have wonderful guests like George. He's appeared on many episodes, including the previously mentioned 2 Christmas Gab Bag episodes, and on occasion I'll release some what I sort of think of as imprint podcasts that I've started as well. Including The Gutters, which is more of a personal audio journal of mine. And then also with Peter Rios from the Daily Rios, we do the Legion Project podcast, where we talk about the Legion of Superheroes from the 1984 series, what is I guess affectionately called, at least I affectionately call it, the Baxter Run. So we get together and talk all good things Legion.
And where can people find this podcast, as if they don't already know?
Yeah, you're such a pro, George. Well, you can find the Longbox Review podcast because obviously I don't know what the heck I'm doing here, at longboxreview.com.
And if anybody is interested, especially since you're probably still in the holiday mood, some of you may even be off between Christmas and New Year's, why don't you go back? You know what? Don't even go to Eric's website, but I want you to subscribe to his show. And I want you to go back into his archives. In 2017, we did our first Christmas Gab Bag on episode 129 of Long Box Review. And then in 2018, we did it on episode 158. So check those out. And it's very easy. They were in December of each year, so you can always scroll back and find them in December of 2017 and 2018. I guess we have to admit to everybody, Eric, before we get into this, that we are recording this well before this episode drops.
Wait, what?
Yeah, what? Huh?
So I thought it was in the future.
While Eric was talking about snowflakes dusting the ground, I do have to admit we're both sitting in our shorts and tank tops in the sun on a sandy beach together, and we just happened to be vacationing together, and we said, you know what? Why don't we record our Christmas Gab Bag now? Because it will just make things easier with all the hustle and bustle of the holiday. So we're recording this back in June, so we don't even know what's going on. We hope that everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Heck, we hope we had a great Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, Eric, why don't we just look forward into the future, and why don't you tell me what a great Thanksgiving you think you had?
Well, I'm pretty sure that I spent the holiday with my daughter and her daughter, so my lovely granddaughter Hadley. So, I bet we saw a hockey game.
Oh,
and while we were there, and also celebrated my other granddaughter Madison's birthday.
Very nice.
At the same time, around the same time. So we had lots of family, lots of food, lots of fun. What about you, George?
Well, what I really want to ask, and I don't know how this benefits anybody since this episode will come out well after we record it, but since you're taking these guesses as to what will happen in our future, who do you think will win that hockey game? Because maybe I'll place a bet.
I would not bet on the local team, the Idaho Steelheads.
Okay, duly noted. Idaho Steelheads, no. Although they're a long shot then, so maybe I should.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, this just goes to show how I deal with finances. Very bad decisions on my part.
Yeah, if you're gonna invest, invest very little.
Yes, and I probably spent Thanksgiving scaling one of the tallest mountains in the world. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. No. Wrong script. I probably spent Thanksgiving with my brother and his family. That's probably what I did. Although the colorful story I was going to tell about scaling the mountain, I'll save that for some other holiday that I record the episode for well into the future. I'll save that for another time. So only time will tell if I had as good a Thanksgiving as I think I did. You think this is, are we holding on to this charade?
Yeah. Next time we let it float into the atmosphere.
Yeah. So how is your holiday season going, Eric? I mean, in all reality, let's talk about it. So how is your 4th of July holiday season going? I mean, how is your Christmas holiday season going?
Well, it's funny you should ask me that, George, because I am in an unusual mood in regards to Christmas this year.
Very interesting.
Normally I am essentially opposed to Christmas, bah humbug and all that. Mm-hmm. But by that I mean I'm opposed to it starting earlier and earlier in the year.
Okay.
George, you must remember this, the classic Charlie Brown Christmas cartoon, right? Where
of course.
Where Charlie Brown is lamenting to Linus about how commercial everything is, right?
Yes.
That was
way ahead of his time.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that was before I was even born that they were talking about that. And here it is, we were into late October, and already some stores, some big box stores, I won't name them, were putting out Christmas stuff.
Yep.
And that's just ridiculous, right? So normally I'm like, Christmas, whatever. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a time of spending a lot of money and not having a lot to show for it, I guess. now I'm starting to sound like Scrooge.
Oh gosh.
But this year, George, for some reason, I started seeing this stuff in the stores, and my wife, who normally starts listening to Christmas music sometime in October, Not kidding. Normally I'm like, oh, please do it. Do you have to listen to that while I'm in the car too? And she's very nice. She's very gracious and tries not to subject me to that. But this year she had some Christmas music come on and she went to turn. I'm like, no, hold on. Oh. And so now for some reason, I know, right? So I'm infected. I've gotten bit by the Christmas bug or something because now I'm like, bring it on. We even decorated the house before Thanksgiving. And that's been a rule in my house for many years, is that, Thanksgiving is its own separate, distinct holiday. Christmas comes after that. So we have Thanksgiving and I even got to the point where, okay, the next day after Thanksgiving, then we can decorate for Christmas. This year, I think it was a week before Thanksgiving or somewhere in that week. I said, let's put up some lights. Let's get the tree out, and all this stuff. So I don't know what happened.
Sure that you were feverish or something.
I'm a pod person, I think. Now.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it's been bizarre.
And I was about to ask you if maybe you were more into the holiday spirit because of such a late Thanksgiving, but you were into it well before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's totally weird.
Okay, something's going on. Well, when was the first snowfall by you? Didn't you get a dusting already out there?
We had snow sometime in October. Mm-hmm. It didn't stick around.
But couldn't that have done it, maybe?
No, I hate snow.
Okay.
I hate snow with a fiery passion, which is odd because I live at an elevation where I get a pretty good amount of snow. Oh. So, that's exactly why I don't like snow. But it's cold, it's slippery. It looks beautiful. I will admit, I don't mind looking at snow. At a scene of snow, but I don't want to be out in it.
Well, on behalf of all of us who have been watching Hallmark Christmas Channel movies for the past 2 months, we welcome you to the dark side. And I definitely use that reference since the latest Star Wars movie has just come out as of this recording.
That's
and of
right.
course, no spoilers, anybody, but as we know, the story really turned out to be the saga of C-3PO and R2-D2. It wasn't really a Skywalker saga. In the end, we find out that they have really been the protagonists throughout this entire saga, and they're the ones who have just saved and taken over the universe as benevolent overlords. Well,
C-3PO is the Skywalker.
Yes. Oh, sorry if we're spoiling anything.
Oh, yeah, spoils.
Yeah,
sorry.
Sorry, folks. Sorry, we didn't mean to do that.
Wouldn't it be funny if that actually turned out to be true?
I know. One of the things Rodney always says, and Kristen says it too, that they're afraid to come up with any theories because if they somehow were correct, they inadvertently ruined the movie for the people they shared their theories with. But ours is the one that's correct.
Of course.
Yeah. Eric, I have to give you a compliment. I think every time we get together, I compliment you, and this is going to be no different. I listened to as of this recording, your recent Gutters episode, and I was impressed, even more than usual, over how much you shared with your listeners. So anybody, if you like podcasting and you are interested in more than just the one topic that your favorite show is about, the Gutters episodes of Longbox Review are for you. Eric talks about all sorts of things on those episodes, strays from his normal brand, and the recent November 2019 episode of The Gutters is one to listen to if you haven't listened to them before. I commend you for not only giving us that audio memoir of yours, but the way that you tell the stories and you're only speaking to the microphone. You're not bouncing things off of a co-host or anything like that. I've always been impressed by that, and I was even more so by your recent Gutters episode. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I should probably warn your listeners that especially if they go listen to that particular episode, be prepared for a long-winded description of my trip to the ER.
And listen,
so beware.
And I can understand, everybody, if you pause this and head over there right now. We'll be here for you when you get back.
Yeah.
I mean, if that doesn't tease you and whet your appetite for something to listen to before the ball drops on New Year's Eve, that's I don't know. We're not doing our job. All right. Shall we get into our Christmas comics?
Let's.
Yes. The format of a Christmas Gab Bag episode is Eric has read 3 Christmas holiday-themed comics, and I have done the same. This year, Eric and I coincidentally have read 1 comic each from Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and an independent publisher. So, we were trying to figure out how to do this, and we decided to go with our independent publishers first. So, Eric, you're the guest this time, whereas I was normally the guest on your show for a Gab Bag. So why don't you go first as the visiting team?
All right. So my first Christmas comic book is from Image Comics. This is from the Volume 5 collection of Dynamo 5. Ooh. This is a book by or a story by Jay Faerber and Marcio Takara. And this is a series that I've only read the first volume, the first trade, George, but I have all the trades. And so when I was investigating, combing through the copious amounts of comic books I have in my collection, like that alliteration.
Well, as we always say here, a little alliteration literally alights a nation.
I don't think I've ever heard that phrase, George. That's great. Anyway, so when I was going through my collection and trying to figure out, okay, what do I have after 2 previous Gab Bag episodes? What do I have?
Possibly be left?
Right?
Yes.
Right. And so I came across this little tale. It was actually a special released in 2010, I believe. It was the Dynamo 5 Holiday Special 2010. But like I said, it's collected here in Volume 5 of the Dynamo 5 trade. And it's just the reason I kind of wanted to start with this one, George, is that it's more of an incidental. It's a Christmas adjacent comic because while it is set during Christmas, there's not a lot of the Christmas trappings, the Christmas tropes that you would normally see in a Christmas related story. But there are some themes here that I thought were really related to Christmas in a couple of different ways. So I don't know. Should I describe the story briefly and then get to that part, or?
Sure.
So I don't know how many I don't know if people are familiar with Dynamo 5, but the basic concept is that a Superman-like being ended up having extramarital affairs and had 5 different kids with 5 different women, and they each, I believe that's true anyway. I'm now second guessing myself after, like I said, I only read the first trade, but they all inherited one of that superhero's powers. So one of the daughters has just his vision powers. Another person is super fast, I think, and then etc. There's like I said, there's 5 of them. They all have distinct powers. Anyway, so one of the old nemesis of this superpower, this is his name Dynamo? I forget what his actual name is now.
I think it was Dynamo.
I think I would hope so because it's called the Dynamo 5. But
yeah.
Like I said, now that I'm actually talking with you about it, I'm like, is that right? Anyway, but I do know the name of the nemesis. His name is Luminex. And so the plot of the story is Luminex escapes from prison and the Dynamo 5 go looking for him because supposedly he attacked these 2 young college women or high school girls. Anyway, so while looking for him, here's where the Christmas stuff kind of creeps in. One of the Dynamo 5 members, Spencer, reminisces to his brothers and sisters how Christmas didn't really mean that much to him. He's actually a human alien hybrid. So, Daddy had an affair with an alien female, I guess. Anyway, so his alien appearance kind of kept him secluded and not, among the earthly population. So he kind of grew up, like I said, in seclusion. But he never, because he's an alien and he was in this science, secret science society or whatever it was. I forget the name of it now, but they didn't celebrate Christmas. But there was one year, however, that one of the research scientists that was studying him actually put up a tree one year and gave him presents and stuff. And so he was just telling his brother and sister, his family, about this. So there's that scene. So, Christmas point one right there. So while they keep searching for Luminex, they actually run across, they talk to his wife, his ex-wife, and then go searching for his daughter, because the wife thinks that dad is going to connect with his daughter. Well, here's the switch. It's actually not Luminex who attacked those two girls and is the quote unquote villain of the story. It's his daughter, and she's now calling herself Lumina because she's inherited his powers.
Oh, okay.
So Lumina attacks the Dynamo 5. And we find out later that she attacked those two girls because they were mean to her at school. And she's telling her dad all this stuff at the same time that's being revealed to us. And she thinks that, she has power. She should be able to act on that. And for the people that are after him, she should be able to destroy them. And she actually does threaten the life of Spencer. She's going to kill him. And that's when, and here's another nice, a nice little kind of Christmas turn. If you think about A Christmas Carol and what happens with Scrooge, right? Suddenly Luminex is like, whoa, you don't want to do this. That is not, you don't want to kill anybody. That's a bad thing. And so he actually gets her to stop, and then agrees or offers to the Dynamo 5, I tell you what, you let her go, and I will go back to prison, no fight whatsoever. Which, seems kind of a little bit of a little too easy, perhaps, But what I like about it is that we get to see a scene later where he's in prison. The daughter and the mother go visit him. This is on Christmas Day that this all happens. So we see that the daughter avoids a life of crime, literally, and there's a bit of redemption there, perhaps, or at least on the path of redemption. So again, very Scrooge, Christmas Carol-y like, which that story very much appeals to me. And then on top of it, we end with on Christmas Day, we see the Dynamo 5 members all converge at the research center where Spencer is, and they have Christmas dinner as a family together. So I that kind of touched my heart. So that's why I wanted to include this particular issue in our Gab Bag talk.
Very good one. I don't have that one in my collection. I've never read that one. Well, my independent book is from a little company called Boom, and it is their Kaboom division. And that is the division of Boom that does the all ages and probably geared more toward children books. And it is in cooperation with Nickelodeon. And I have strayed a little bit here, Eric, in the
shocker, George, shocker.
in the spirit of the season and the spirit of diversity, I have here Rugrats C is for Hanukkah #1. Yes, this is our first Hanukkah tale in our Christmas Gab Bag history. At least I think it is.
Yes, it will be the first one because there's a couple things here that I'll mention about Hanukkah.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
I think so at least one.
Okay, so this will be great. On the cover, you have all the Rugrats that we know and love: Tommy, Chucky, Lil and Phil, and Angelica. They're sneaking some latkes while Tommy is lighting the menorah with Grandma and Grandpa. This story here is the families have rented a house in the mountains to go to for Hanukkah. Not everybody in the family is Jewish. I think in Tommy's case, his father is Christian, his mother is Jewish, so they celebrate both Christmas and Hanukkah. And I know the Rugrats have had on TV a Hanukkah special. So at first I was wondering, was this an adaptation? And it isn't. I mean, at least not a special that I've ever seen with the Rugrats. So this is an original story by Daniel Kibble-Smith and Colin Crawford as the writers, illustrated by Kate Sheeran, lettered by Jim Campbell, with a great cover by Kristen Garland. Just to give the brief overview, it's the hijinks that ensue while all the families are away, and how the Rugrats interpret things that they hear about Hanukkah, and all the mischief that they get into. The story opens up, based on the shape of the panels, it looks like you're watching a TV special that is introducing you to the history of Hanukkah. Seems like it's a serious show until you get to the last panel where the Maccabee looks up to the sky and he goes, "For God has sent us a champion to help protect us." And you turn the page and you see the Rugrats watching TV, and that champion is none other than Reptar. This is the Reptonica 2 Robotar's Revenge special that the Rugrats are watching on TV.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We shift the scenes because you have to set some things up at the beginning of the episode. If this were a TV show, you have to set some things up that are going to come into play later, perhaps. And one of the things that's pretty obvious that you should remember is that Chucky's dad, who is a very nervous Nelly, he has packed in the car the Panicked Parent Emergency Kit, which coincidentally has 8 extra bright rechargeable flashlights.
Oh my gosh.
Now, if you think something like that is going to come into play later, you might be correct. In typical Rugrats fashion, the babies say things in a different way than they're supposed to be said. So Hanukkah to them is called harmonica, and they don't know what harmonica is. Part of the fun of Rugrats, and Eric, I don't know, were you, when Rugrats started, I was, college age, maybe even a little older. So Rugrats is beyond my time. However, I have watched it before. I'm not going to say I saw every episode, but I've seen it before, so I get the gist of each episode. But did you ever watch? What about your children? Were they into it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I was exposed to Rugrats was through my daughter watching it, and I think my granddaughters Madison and Gabby also got into it a little bit too. So I've seen a fair share. I don't know how many episodes that show ran for, but I saw a good many of them, and I quite enjoyed that show. That was a well done cartoon.
The structure of the comic is really no different than, say, an episode of the show. So as we're setting everything up and Angelica starts terrorizing the babies, Grandpa Boris is angry that the babies are learning about Hanukkah from a cartoon. So he proceeds to tell them the true story. And of course, he gets a little forgetful and he loses his place a couple of times. So there's some humor in the retelling of the Hanukkah story. But a couple of things that are key in the story. He has introduced the children to the concept of a golem, that it is a terrible, mindless mud monster of incredible strength that some say ate even people. So, of course, this scares the babies, especially Chucky, because Chucky is the one who gets scared the most. 20 minutes into the story, and I think this part is key, again, to keep to the comedy of the Rugrats, Grandpa Boris says, "And then, to the surprise of Judah Maccabee, Sandy Koufax, and Sammy Davis Jr., the lamp oil miraculously lasted for 8 nights. And the light of the menorah protected our people and shone brighter than any evil in this world." Now we know. Judah Maccabee, Sandy Koufax, and Sammy Davis Jr. were all present during the miracle of Hanukkah, which, of course, is something I didn't know. So, see, you can learn something from a kid's comic. Who knew?
Well, I'm sure there are many miracles over the years, George, so it's very possible that they were there.
Meanwhile, one of the other key components that may come in handy later, while Angelica is not Jewish, she does have 8 presents to open on each night of Hanukkah because she is a spoiled brat that way. And she complains and she complains. So on the first night of Hanukkah, she got an 800 kilowatt glow-in-the-dark Cynthia doll, just like she screamed for. And again, keeping in your mind the light, an 800 kilowatt glow-in-the-dark doll might come into play a little later. So put that aside. Put a pin in that one as we move forward. They're just really fun jokes in here. Like, for instance, in the absence of a menorah, because while Chucky's dad remembered all the emergency stuff, he forgot to bring the menorah. So Grandpa Boris uses a piece of bread to put the candles in each night. And from the drawings, it looks like they're birthday candles. So you make do with what you have when you're in a cabin in the woods for Hanukkah. So Tommy, being the brave baby that he is, he wants to set Chucky's mind at ease. So getting back to the flashlights, he tells Chucky that he doesn't have to worry about the golem because the light protected the people and shone brighter than any mean old golem in this world. And of course, what does he take out? One of the emergency flashlights. So the flashlights are going to scare the golem away. Day 2 of Hanukkah, they go tubing. And the key thing to remember here, besides all the little different jokes that they have here, is the flashlights seem to be missing from the emergency pack. And B,
no.
Where could they have possibly gone? And this is pretty funny. Of course, the Lipschitz app on Tommy's mother's phone says it's generally not good to put babies on fast-moving recreational objects. Now, I don't know if you felt this way when, your kids were young and your grandchildren, but I don't know. Do you use the Lipschitz app? Because I'm unfamiliar with that.
It's a new one on me.
Yeah, I did. I never heard of that.
Sounds like
before.
we're missing out, though.
Yeah. Well, Angelica apparently got a rocket-powered sled for the second night of Hanukkah.
Wow.
And it's called the Rosebud 9000. I don't know where they got that name from. And she is about to ride the Rosebud 9000 down the mountain when her mother says, "Hey, Angelica, the Cynthia 8 Nights of Fashion Hanukkah special is starting." And Angelica runs into the house because she loves Cynthia, who needs a dumb old sled, and leaves the sled in the snow. The babies get scared by a snowman that they think is the golem. Again, all these little things setting things up like the cartoon would do. Night 3 of Hanukkah, it's time to introduce everybody to the Golem Busters. The kids get all their flashlights and they want to make sure that the golem does not come and get them. And as they're traipsing around the house, Phil, the little baby, comments, "Man, I'm getting too old for this." And as they go out to hunt down the golem, Tommy says, "I hope everyone's got on fresh diapers." Because I know I have on fresh diapers. I don't know about you, Eric, and you need to for the 8 nights of Hanukkah. Now, on night 4 of Hanukkah, see, boy, I'm telling you, Hanukkah was never more exciting than in this book right here. So on night 4 of Hanukkah, the kids are all dreaming separate types of dream. Tommy confronts the golem, but Tommy's flashlight, the batteries died. So now he has nothing to scare the golem away, so the golem's going to go eat him. Lil and Phil are fighting over in their dreams who is going to get eaten first by the golem, and each one wants to get eaten. It's not that they want the other one to get eaten. It's supposed to be fun to be eaten by the golem. So that's what they're dreaming about, that they're getting eaten by the monster. While Chucky is dreaming that the monster has been created specifically to destroy him. And of course, what is Angelica dreaming about? She is dressed like whatever Charlize Theron's character in the Mad Max Fury Road movie was.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she's dressed like her on top of one of those Mad Max cars, and she says, "Everyone's gone. My attitude drove them all away. I'm all alone in the world. I did it. I'm queen of the world, and no one will ever bother me again." Go to the 5th night of Hanukkah. Now, the 5th night of Hanukkah is a dog's eye view of what's going on. So the dog is sniffing the bread that is the menorah, which now has 5 candles in it. Angelica is opening her preschool pre-med doctor's kit. The dog looks up the steps to see Tommy and the other babies setting a trap for the golem. And what is that trap? They're stretching out a string of lights at the head of the stairs to trip the golem. But of course, who trips but Tommy's dad? He's lying all crushed and crumbled at the bottom of the stairs. The dog licks his face, and Angelica starts treating him with her little doctor's kit that she just got for the 5th night of Hanukkah. Move on to night number 6. Boy, all my buddies who celebrate Hanukkah, I don't think they had this much fun. I think everybody needs to rent a cabin in the mountains with their family, friends, and neighbors and have a lot of fun and maybe confront the golem.
Well, I wonder, George, has anybody had so much fun at Hanukkah as depicted in this comic book?
No.
I don't think so.
No, not at all. No. I can't imagine, and especially Angelica, who, in the first panel on the 6th night of Hanukkah, tells us that she has received her glow-in-the-dark Cynthia, the Rosebud 9000 sled, then she got a remote-control First Strike Cynthia drone copter, a laptop, and the doctor's kit. And when she mentions the Rosebud 9000 sled, she says, "Where'd I leave that thing anyway?" Where indeed, Angelica, did you leave that sled? We shall find out. But now she wants to know what her other presents are. So now that she's bored, she terrorizes the babies. And she tells the babies, "Hey, if you want to get that monster, there is a package of monster bait in the attic, but it's disguised as a present, and I need you to find it. If you want to defeat that monster, find that present." So the kids go into the attic. They go into a box of hats. They put on all these different hats. And Tommy is acting like Indiana Jones because he's got an Indiana Jones hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And they go through everything, and it's kind of cute because in Chucky's mind, he's stuck in quicksand, as he calls quit sand, but he's really stuck in a box of 1980s sweaters that's up in the attic. They find the present, and of course, as they grab it, a giant boulder comes down toward them in the form of a bowling ball. And they're running away with the bowling ball, and they jump into a mining cart that's on a track, just kind of like Indiana Jones, probably more like Temple of Doom than Raiders of the Lost Ark. And they're trying to escape the boulder. And of course, it turns out again, the boulder is really a bowling ball, and the cart is a laundry basket, and they fall down the stairs. And Angelica goes, "Oh my God, you really did it. You found the thing." And then they realize that Angelica lied to them. And what was in the box that they went through all this trouble for? A pair of socks. Angelica is not happy. On the seventh night of Hanukkah, the dog steals the bread in which the candles have been placed. So there goes the menorah. And we find out that only Tommy's flashlight has power. Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun. We hit the climax. The eighth night of Hanukkah, as we all know, is the best night of Hanukkah. One little bit of information that I neglected to mention in my telling of this tale is that when the grown-ups were unpacking their car, Tommy's dad had brought a Reptar inflatable figure to put outside the house to decorate for Christmas.
As one does.
As one does. And now that it's the eighth night of Hanukkah and they have to prepare to leave in the morning the next day, Tommy's dad goes outside to unhook Reptar. And of course, since it snowed, all the wires and the cables have been hidden under the snow. And as he goes to unplug Reptar, he accidentally unplugs the generator. As he does so, and he trips, he lands on the Rosebud 9000 sled, and he goes careening down the mountain. But because he unplugged the generator instead of unplugging Reptar, the house goes dark. And Reptar is still being fed energy to keep him as an inflated decoration outside the house. Of course, Tommy's dad lands in some mud, and as he comes back up the mountain, he looks like a golem. And he can't see where he's going because he has pine cones in his eyes. And he runs into the Reptar inflatable monster that's in front of the house. Tommy and the kids go grab their flashlights, and the kids are going, "But Tommy, your flashlight was the only one that had power and the battery was low. What are we going to do?" And he goes, "Don't worry, we've got to have faith. Hanukkah just isn't about getting presents or eating potato pancakes." And one of the kids says, "Yeah, we eat coins too. Hanukkah is about mirables." And they all grab their flashlights, and they work. They miraculously work. And they run outside, and of course Angelica grabs her 800 kilowatt Cynthia doll, and they go and they shine their light on the golem. And they defeat him, because Mom now is bringing out towels and water to wash all the muck off of Tommy's dad, and they realize, oh, the golem ate Tommy's dad first, and they feel that they've defeated the monster. Now, of course I know what you're wondering, Eric. How in the world did those flashlights get their power back?
Exactly.
Well, if you recall, they were rechargeable. And Chucky's dad, being the ever-vigilant, paranoid person that he is, he made sure to recharge them the night before because he saw that the kids were playing with them a lot and they loved playing with them. And that's how the kids saved Hanukkah. So, Eric, like most of our episodes like this where we talk about the plots of comic books, I don't think we've had one lately that more encompasses the phrase hilarity ensued. Because that's exactly what this comic was. It was a romp. It was a lot of fun. And if you'll allow me to, I'm going to read the last two panels.
Please.
Phil is talking to Tommy, saying, "I was wrong, Tommy. This was the bestest harmonica ever." And Tommy says, "Until the next one, guys. Now, who wants potato pancakes?" Lil says, "I'm already full of coins from under the couch." And Angelica says, "Wait a minute," and cries out to the heavens, "Where's my sled?" Happy Hanukkah, everybody. So what is your next choice? So we're going to do DC now, right?
DC, yes. So I chose the DC Holiday Special of 2017, but George, that wasn't originally what I was going to choose. I actually was going to choose a different DC Holiday Special, but for some reason, when I pulled it out and started reading and taking notes, it was for the 2017 special. But that's okay because there's some nice little Christmassy type stories in here. Are
you going to share with us what the original was, or will we have to wait till next year when that's the one you pull out of the box?
I think it was the next year's DC Holiday Special. For some reason, I had both of them out and then chose to read the 2017, even though I had decided already to do the other one. I don't know what happened. It's a Christmas miracle.
Are your flashlights miraculously recharged? Wrong holiday.
It sounds like, was that Tommy's dad that did that?
Who did the recharging? No, that was
Yeah.
Chucky's dad.
Chucky's dad.
Yeah.
Sounds like Chucky is Chucky's dad is the one who saved harmonica.
Yeah.
So this is the DC Holiday Special 2017. It's framed by this little story with Clark Kent visiting Bibbo's bar. Apparently, he does this every year about this time. And so this, I don't know. There's a lot of different artists and writers and everybody involved in here.
Which cover? I kind of remember things by their covers. Oh, okay. So this is the one where all the heroes are on the sled.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, an Andy Kubert cover for that. But so this is the frame of the story is called The Reminder. This is by Jeff Lemire, Giuseppe Camuncoli. That's
okay.
Cam Smith, Tomeo More, and Clayton Coles did this part of it. Anyway, so Clark, alias Superman, is visiting Bibbo's bar. He's commiserating with John Constantine, who happens to be in the bar. It seems kind of weird that he's there, but okay. That things have been tough for many that year. When Bibbo claims that by having Superman around, things will work out, he then proceeds to tell Clark a bunch of stories to accentuate that whole idea. And so then we get a bunch of different, there are 11, as it says here, 11 festive fables from some of comics' greatest creators. And I've chosen a few of these to highlight. The first of which is Hope for the Holidays. This is by Joshua Williamson, Neil, it says Googe. I think I might have mistyped that. Hold on a second. No, I did not mistype that. Neil Googe, Ivan Placencia, Tom Napolitano. So this is a Flash story. And the Flash, being, the super fast guy of the DC universe, he's too busy, however, doing Flash stuff, I guess, to spend time with his former ward sidekick, Wally West, who is wanting to spend time with his uncle during the holidays.
Like one wants to do.
Yeah, right. But then Flash runs into this little girl at an airport. I think he had to stop some bad guys there. But then he ran into this little girl. She's on a school trip, but because of the weather, all the planes are grounded. And so then this is Christmas Eve. And so she can't get home in time for Christmas. And the first thing I like about this is that here's this little girl. She must be, I don't know, 8 or 10, something like that. She's not concerned about not being home for Christmas because how that impacts her directly. She's more concerned about getting the presents that she has gotten on this trip to give to her parents.
I see.
And so she doesn't ask the Flash to please take her home to her parents. She asks the Flash, will he please take the presents home to her parents so they have something to open up on Christmas. So that touches my heart. I might be saying that phrase a little bit during the course of this episode.
Well, it is that time of year, Eric.
Yeah, exactly. So that prompts Flash to, you know what? I am the fastest man alive. I can do this. He then proceeds to run all of the passengers in that airport home, no matter where they are, including the little girl. And so that's when he realizes that being able to spend time with friends and family is the greatest gift of all. And we do get a couple scenes at the end there where we see the little girl arriving at the doorstep of her home and being able to hand the presents to her parents. And they spend Christmas together, which, yeah, exactly. Right. But then the story actually ends with the Flash and Wally sitting down together at Wally's place and hanging out and doing family stuff over Christmas. So I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, that was a good one.
There's another one here, and I will be the first to admit I was very surprised that I chose this one because it is Silent Night, written by Dan DiDio. And if anyone has listened to the Long Box Review podcast, you might have heard me talking about not that I don't like Mr. Dan DiDio's writing, but it's not my favorite. But I did enjoy this one. This is the artists on here, Matthew Clark, Sean P. Parsons, Rob Schweiger, and Travis Lanham doing this. This is George, do you remember these characters, the Atomic Knights from the DC Universe?
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
It's an Atomic Knights story, which that's kind of out of left field already, right? Yeah. And so just in case people don't know, the Atomic Knights are this kind of futuristic, some future setting or alternate future type characters where the world has been destroyed, and they are the Atomic Knights, and they patrol the world and protect the innocents and that kind of stuff. I hope I got that right, because I actually haven't read a whole lot of Atomic Knight stories. But I'm pretty sure if this story is an indication of what the Atomic Knights are about, that's pretty much I think on key there. So basically, the story is about the Atomic Knights. They're at odds with the villagers of this little town of Durvale, whom they are there to protect. And it is the holiday season. And the reason they're at odds with these villagers is that the villagers want to basically, I have my notes here, George. It says to massacre sentient trefoils. I don't know that massacre is the right word now that I'm thinking about it, but they definitely don't want them around.
Right.
So the metaphor is obvious, right? Well, in a sense, because apparently, I don't know if this is part of continuity for the Atomic Knights or not, but these sentient plants, these trefoils, I think that's how you say it, they've been an enemy and an ally of these villagers in the past. And apparently right now, the villagers think they are perceived as an enemy right now. There's also this, again, this is why Dan DiDio's writing is kind of for me, because we get this kind of side story about how one of the Atomic Knights left them, and she went off to join these sentient plants for some reason. Okay. Anyway, just as things are getting really bad, where the villagers are basically think pitchforks and torches. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Almost literally going after these plants. One of the plants arrives. It's a giant one. So the trefoils are basically average height, human height, except this one that shows up, and that's when they panic. The villagers panic because it's huge. It's like 2 or 3 stories tall, and so they think they're being attacked. And what happens is that tree puts down this box on the ground. And that's when that former Atomic Knight, the female Atomic Knight that I mentioned, arrives, basically saying to the leader of the Atomic Knights, hey, this is not what it seems. And of course, it does turn out to not be what it seems, because the trefoil has brought the present of a Christmas tree, all lit up and everything, to these villagers. Because they heard the stories of the Atomic Knight who came to live with them, and they wanted to repay the villagers for some reason. But anyway, so if this sounds really disjointed, the way I'm telling it, it's because the story is a bit disjointed. But I did like the idea behind it. And I have a quote here from the story itself. I'll read a little bit of it here. Remember how, this is the leader of the Atomic Knights. He says, I lost track of the days, the years. Ever since the war, there are things we need to remember. Remember how much has changed and how much we need to change. And in the spirit of the season, if we ever hope to build a better future, it must be built together with love and understanding for all. And I don't know about you, George, but that seems to be a really good message even today.
Oh, yeah.
So Dan DiDio, despite himself, succeeded in touching this cold heart inside my chest.
This cold heart that hates and despises Christmas.
That's right. And then there's the next one, Solstice is the name of this one, by Greg Rucka, Bilkis Evely, Romulo Fajardo Jr., and Dave Sharp. This is basically it's a bit of a weird thing. So it's a story with showing Wonder Woman and Batman basically dealing with violence and tragedy on their own with the people that they're rescuing or the villains that they're fighting. At the end, they get together in the woods and they're building a bonfire. Batman, actually, it's Bruce Wayne. It's Bruce Wayne and Diana here. They're not in their costumes. He asks, how many years have we been doing this on the longest night of the year? Diana says, many. I cannot celebrate solstice with my sisters, so I choose you. Yeah, but why me? Clark would love this. It would appeal to the Eagle Scout in him. Dinah says, Clark does not need this. He makes his own light. But you and I have a more intimate relationship with darkness, so you and I must guard against being consumed by it and remind ourselves that the light always returns. So again, it's kind of echoing the Atomic Knight story a little bit, and in a sense, the Flash story. So I thought that was kind of neat that we get that. If we keep trying to make, back at the bar, and that's the next story after this. Back at the bar, we come back to the frame. Bibble tells Clark, if you keep trying to make the world a little bit better, and he says here it is. He says, and if you keep trying to make the world a little bit better in your own way, you'll inspire others to do the same, just like Big Blue, Superman. So it's a little schmaltzy, a little saccharine, but
Do we expect less from our Christmas comics?
Well, what's a Christmas Carol if not sugary sweet at the end?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
There also, just to entice people, I guess, there is an encore holiday classic. I'm going to show George on the video here. I don't know how much you can see, but this is a reprint from Batman number 219, The Silent Night of the Batman by Mike Friedrich, Neil Adams, Dick Giordano, Jerry Serpe, and Jasper Saladino. It's so weird, George. Batman goes to the police headquarters, and Commissioner Gordon basically convinces him to stick around instead of going out on patrol, to stick around and sing Christmas carols with the officers at the station. And there's several scenes of Batman singing, George, singing Christmas carols. And during the course of this, we see things happening around the city where bad things almost happen, but they don't, because somebody sees what they think is the shadow of Batman watching over them, so they don't do the crime. Or there's another one where this woman is, I guess, contemplating suicide on a bridge. But she's, because the shape of the bridge, the way that the moonlight is shining behind her, it kind of looks like a bat. And so she hesitates, and then her lover, I guess, shows up and prevents her from doing anything bad. Anyway, so it basically, Batman is at the police station singing all night long, and not one call has come into the police station. And then there's this weird thing where, so he says, it's like the spirit of Christmas peace took hold on everyone. And then there's this weird, I'll show George here, this weird kind of ghost-like image. And to me, it looks like Commissioner Gordon, but it's not. So it's almost like the whole thing with him at the station didn't really happen. But the quote unquote spirit says to him, but what is the Christmas spirit, Batman? Might it not be you or I? Anyway, very bizarre story from Batman number 219. So,
but that is a classic. I mean, you've read that one before, reading it in there, right?
That particular Batman?
Yeah.
I think I have. Yeah. I had not remembered the details of it before I read it again here in this issue. But yeah, it's a weird one.
Well, especially in today's day and age, where he's the real, not only is he the Dark Knight, but he's almost like a grim knight.
Yes.
And this is all pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths and kind of changing him after year one and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, he's almost like a little too dark for me in my, you'd figure in my older years now, I'd be like, yeah, I want my gritty, realistic character, but I kind of like that.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just too nostalgic, but yeah, that's a good story. Yeah. It was an interesting one to put at the tail end of a modern compilation comic with new material, especially if somebody really hasn't been reading too much and maybe only knows the movie version of the character at this point, to see it like that, they might go, what is this supposed to be? Is this supposed to be the one from 1966 that my grandfather watched?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm sure some perhaps maybe even younger readers. Well, I don't know how many younger readers may even realize what the 1960s Batman was all about. So who knows? But yeah, I could see where people might go and think of that Batman story in that way, like you described. So that was a good point. Yeah. So what you're going to DC too, right? So what do you have for DC?
Well, my DC pick, Eric, is an issue of Superman. And before I tell you which one it is, I neglected to tell everybody that the Rugrats C is for Hanukkah #1 from Kaboom was published in 2018. So it's last year's. I mean, there's really no cover date, but when you look at the little legal mumbo jumbo at the bottom, it says November 2018, just in case anybody was interested in that kind of the detail. And it was a whopping $7.99. Take that in comparison to this issue of Superman from the holiday season of 1981. So we're really going back there, Eric.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're really going back.
That's the heyday of my comic collecting.
It's issue number 369, cover date March 1982. The cover banner reads, "The Man of Steel in a Yule duel with the Parasite." And at the top, it's all new for 60 cents, Eric. 60 cents. And
I think I've seen this book.
On the cover of the Parasite, and it's a bird's eye view. Parasite's flying into Superman, knocking him into what we would consider like the Rockefeller Christmas tree, a large Christmas tree. And the people down on the street are watching, pointing up, saying, "Oh God, Superman's being, hit by the Parasite." Oh, and as we have done on past episodes, Eric, the back cover is an ad for plastic models of the front cabs of 18-wheelers, just in case anybody wanted to pick one of those up. So on page 1, the reader sees the standard blurb. Back in the old days, they used to use this. I don't even know if they do it anymore, telling us who Superman is, just in case this is our first experience with the character. We are also introduced to WGBS reporters Lana Lang and Steve Lombard. Steve Lombard, is that a name that sparks any memories, Eric?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And on the sidelines, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. They're all waiting with the rest of Metropolis for Superman to deliver the giant Christmas tree to Galaxy Plaza. So this is DC Comics. Metropolis is the stand-in for New York, kind of, I guess. So this is their version of Rockefeller Center, I guess. But of course, Superman is delayed because he's saving a mother and child trapped in their house being swallowed by a sinkhole, as one does on Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, I don't think it's Christmas Eve. I think it's just the beginning of the holiday season. Sorry, I was thinking more along the lines that we were doing the Hanukkah thing, so I thought this was Christmas Eve. Not the case. And I bring up the whole sinkhole thing. I could have just glossed over this, Eric, and said Superman was helping save the day. But I thought it was very interesting how this really shows the difference between comics from 35 years ago compared to now. Not only does Superman save the house and the people who are in the house, and explains that the reason the house didn't totally get destroyed as it was being sunk in the hole is because it was a modular home, and that's why the house stayed together, so he was able to just lift the whole house and move it over to safety. But he also, as he is doing this, he has an inner monologue of not only defining what a sinkhole is, but explaining how he is going to fill it, like a dentist fills a cavity, Eric. So get this.
Yes.
In this case, he's drilling deep into the earth to release magma from the core. Then he's going to freeze it over with his frigid breath, just like dentists do. Now, remember, he's saying this all in his mind, which we don't get today. We don't get this kind of inner monologue today. No. Now, all the while when he's doing this, he's kind of bellyaching about how the holidays are a drain on him and how last year was supposed to be his last year for picking up the Christmas tree and delivering it. He's kind of feeling sorry for himself because he has so many responsibilities, Eric. I mean, we all have responsibilities around the holidays. Of course, he has to deliver the big Christmas tree over at their version of Rockefeller Center. So we are told by the omniscient narrator, which again is something missing in today's comics, that the Man of Steel better be on super alert for a 3-way attack by a mysterious foe, or this will turn out to be Superman's Last Christmas. Dun, dun, dun. That's the title of the book. And it is written by Carrie Bates. The art is by Rich Buckler. The inker is Frank McLaughlin. Letters by Ben Oda. Colorist by Adrian Roy. And the editor is the legendary Julius Schwartz.
Classic Superman team.
On page 4, we are introduced to a character named Corey Renwald. And you know what? I'm going to ask you about this eventually. Not that you're ever going to remember any of this, but I'm going to be very curious about something you might have in your collection. We're introduced to a character named Corey Renwald, who was attacked by a thief dressed as a street corner Santa. Now, we know Corey's name not because of the omniscient narrator, but because in Corey's own inner monologue, he says, well, tonight Corey Renwald just isn't in the mood to go 3 rounds with some small-time street muscle. Now, Corey's a pretty good fighter, and he's pretty agile on his feet. And after he dispatches with the thug, he says he has an appointment to keep, which, again, we all talk to ourselves when we're going to go keep an appointment, and we all know that. Superman delivers and decorates the tree and flies off. Lana is left to light the tree by herself, as mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent arrives on the scene to join his colleagues. Meanwhile, at the podcast, Corey Renwald arrives at a construction site and mentions fellow operatives who wouldn't want an assignment over the holidays, but to him, it's just another case, and the tougher the case, the better. Corey is a government operative, and the Mission Impossible type voice on a tape tells him he has to shadow a potential traitor who works at WGBS and the Daily Planet. And it's none other than Clark Kent. Dun dun dun! And it seems like Corey is acquainted with Clark. Even more of a complication. Gung gung gung. Cut to Superman relaxing in the Fortress of Solitude, as he does. So Superman's trying to forget the overwhelming Christmas rush, but he's also reminiscing of holidays past with Mom and Pa Kent on the farm. As he wallows in a little self-pity while basking in the soothing wavelengths of the Hollow Beamer, Eric, you might want to get one for Christmas from Brookstone, we see mysterious, glowing, disembodied footsteps appear in the snow outside, walking purposefully toward the fortress. Superman misses his deceased Ma and Pa Kent, and they were deceased. I don't even know. I don't even remember with all the reboots and stuff from back then. I even forgot that they were deceased, to be honest with you. I totally forgot that. He's feeling ultra isolated during the holidays as he misses them. And as Superman opens his eyes to get up and end his meditation, he becomes startled and he says, "Great Krypton! No, it can't be. Not you." Continued on second page following.
Don't see that anymore either.
You don't. And you want to know something? When you turn the page, we interrupt this story with a Hostess Twinkies ad starring Batman in the Canine Caper. Canine, the evil man in a full dog costume, like a mascot or a theme park character, has infiltrated the Kennel Club dog show at Gotham Arena, and he's luring the prized pooches away with his ultrasonic dog whistle so he can ransom them back. But Batman doesn't want the show to be a doggone disaster.
Jeez.
You see what they did there, Eric? Doggone disaster. So he stops the perpetrator with Hostess Twinkies cakes, registered trademark. Of course, Canine can't resist a light golden sponge cake and the luscious cream filling. So just like a Tom King Batman story, you get a big delight in every bite of Hostess Twinkies cakes, registered trademark. We now return to Superman's Last Christmas Part 2, as it says in the banner on the next page. The person who is hovering over Superman is none other than the Parasite, as teased on the cover of the issue. He immediately takes advantage of Superman's meditative state in the Holobeam and begins siphoning our hero's powers. In a last burst of energy, Superman surprises his foe and throws him into a glacier 17 miles away. Not 16, not 18, 17 miles, Eric. Superman falls further into a funk, saying he wouldn't have been caught off guard if he wasn't wallowing in the holiday doldrums. And as Parasite recovers, he has his own inner monologue tuned into Superman's mental state as part of the absorption process. In fact, there's an editor's note explaining this mind drain power, and it enabled Parasite to find out that Superman is Clark Kent. Now I forgot about all these little details from, pre-crisis days. Parasite intends to use Superman's blue funk against him in his most inspired stroke of anti-Superman strategy he's ever conceived. End quote. The next day, I feel like the omniscient narrator. The next day, as Clark Kent is walking in the city with Lois, he hears with his super hearing the sound of a rifle bolt being primed to be fired. He quickly uses his X-ray vision and finds the rifle is aimed at him by a member of the Syndicate, a criminal organization that Clark did an expose on. And before Clark can use his heat vision to jam the rifle, the would-be assassin is taken out by none other than Agent Corey Renwald. So when Clark sees this, he identifies Agent Renwald by using his X-ray vision to read the ID in his pocket, as, Clark Kent is wont to do. And he remembers a younger Agent Renwald on a case in Smallville, as seen in Superboy number 19. So this character apparently appeared in an issue of Superboy, which I'll bet is somewhere in your collection, Eric.
Possibly, yes. I have to go look that up.
And if I had the time or the need, I probably would have looked it up on the interwebs. But so Corey Renwald appears in Superboy number 19. Clark thinks Corey is in town to take out the remnants of the syndicate, not realizing he's stalking Clark. Agent Renwald gets his next set of orders, and he gets some new information that not only is Clark Kent a traitor, but he sold out his country to aliens. So Corey must break into Clark's apartment and get evidence to show that he did this. But, of course, Clark Kent has an ultrasonic siren set up on his door, and it's an alarm only he can hear, much like K9's dog whistle in the Hostess Twinkies Cakes registered trademark ad. Clark uses his X-ray vision to see Corey in his apartment and realizes now that Corey intervened with the syndicate because he was following Clark. And as Clark races off to the file room at the Daily Planet or GBS or wherever he was to change into Superman, he's confronted by the Parasite. Continued on second page following. Superman's Last Christmas, Part 3. Don't you miss those banners that separated the story and made it an epic novel-length issue?
Yeah, when they would even actually call it a novel-length story in a 20-something page comic book.
Exactly. They didn't do that in this case, but I mean, they may as well have. The Parasite has Superman in his grasp as they crash through the window to exit high above the street. And the Parasite's disappointed because Superman hasn't fully recovered from the last time he had his power siphoned. Parasite just throws him down. And of course, where does Superman land? Right into the large galaxy Christmas tree that he had delivered and decorated, and he destroys the tree.
Well, now he's going to be ticked. He's going to have to get another one.
You're not kidding. And we shift to Agent Renwald, who, by the way, is also known as Agent 449K. So any relation to K9 from the Hostess Twinkies Cakes registered trademark ad? We don't know. Now, he's found something in Clark's apartment that puts him in a moral dilemma. Now, he doesn't say what he's found in the apartment, so we're only left to guess as the reader. And he's trying to figure out if he should divulge this information to the people who have hired him, or keep it a secret between him and Clark Kent. He demands a meeting with the head honcho coordinating this effort due to the sensitive nature of the information that he has. So he just doesn't want to deliver to any old lackey. He wants to deliver to the head honcho. So the agent with whom Corey has been conversing turns out to really be the Parasite. But of course, he doesn't divulge this information to the reader until after Corey is out of sight. But the Parasite is kind enough to divulge his entire plan to us, the reader. Knowing of Renwald's expertise as an agent, he confronted him dressed as Santa to do a split-second brain drain to find out his next rendezvous point. So he was the guy who was dressed as Santa that attacked him at the beginning of the book. Now here you go, the pre-crisis of Bronze Age.
The complications.
He did the brain drain, found out where Corey was supposed to go, beat him there, changed the tape, and in essence changed the instructions of what to do. He knew Renwald would find something of Superman's hidden at Clark Kent's place because he knows that Clark Kent and Superman are the same person. So finding one of Superman's hidden space trophies in Clark's apartment would show that Clark Kent has had contact with other worlds and would be something to back up the whole traitor aspect of what he was accusing him of. And Parasite is using Superman's amplified feeling of alienation to take advantage and send him into the depths of despair as he deals with two crises. Parasite threatens Superman while Renwald threatens Clark Kent. What a genius, right, Eric? What a genius. So now we...
it's funny because the Parasite has never been shown to be a particularly genius intellect.
Mm-hmm. Now we cut to the WGBS Christmas party, and as Clark tries to duck out to change into Superman, he runs into Lois, who, now this I found kind of interesting. Lois introduces Clark to her good friend from New York, NBC newscaster Carol Jenkins, who is a real person. I'm originally from New York, and I remember Carol Jenkins.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was kind of weird that they threw in a real NBC anchor.
I wonder who she was friends or associates with that worked at DC Comics.
Yeah, it has to be something like that. It's a very interesting cameo, but I will tell you this. In the comic, she's portrayed as a Caucasian, but she's an African-American person.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't know if that was I kind of was blaming, back then sometimes the colors were off. Heck, even sometimes like the red S on Superman's costume might be wrong or something like that. But she wasn't drawn. It wasn't look like it was miscolored. Let's put it that way. So it was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and that's why I had to do a double take on it, because I was thinking to myself, Carol Jenkins. Okay, I remember her, but then I was thinking maybe I'm remembering the wrong person. So after I was done, I did look her up, and I said, yeah, there's Carol Jenkins. She's right there. It looks nothing like her. Why did they even bring her up? So you're right. She probably knew somebody though at the DC offices or something.
Yeah, the DC back then, well, maybe even a little too much today. They're a little too white.
But now, Eric, we're going to get to the grand finale. So here we go. Now, if you thought that the plan was convoluted, if Parasite's plan was convoluted, wait till you hear the resolution. Are you ready?
Oh,
Are you ready,
boy.
folks?
Yeah.
Strap in, everybody. Clark knew Parasite would return after their first encounter, because that's what Parasite does. He didn't siphon off enough power. He's going to come back for more. So Superman injected himself with a low dose of kryptonite radiation.
Oh, boy.
Diluted with other chemicals. So this had multiple effects. First, since Parasite did indeed return and drain Superman again, Superman was able to track him due to the chemical treatment. So it was almost like putting a tracking device on Parasite. So as Superman is explaining this to us, the reader, in his inner monologue, the Parasite is just like a private eye, almost like the way the character of the Question would dress.
A trench coat and hat.
Exactly. With his face kind of covered enough by the hat, like a noir movie, to meet up with Agent Renwald, who only set up the meeting because he knew the head honcho was a phony, but he wanted to call him out. He had no idea it was the Parasite. He just knew that he was dealing with somebody pretty shady. Superman intervenes and exposes the Parasite. Parasite attempts to drain Superman's powers, but it causes him pain. And since Parasite was thriving on Kryptonian power, the green kryptonite poisoning started to affect him, causing him to fall to the ground unconscious and powerless. And as he does so, he yells, "Fiendish Superman, using your mortal weakness as a weapon to overcome me." Just as a point of reference, just to let you know, the code phrase that was used over and over again in the story between Corey and Parasite while Parasite was dressed in costume, or when he was on the phone, was, "The rain in Spain falls mainly in the mesa." And then the response was, "except when the north wind blows." I don't know if that means something. I mean, I know the rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain, but I don't know if they're fooling around with something besides just where the rain fell.
What is this referencing? Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, so it must be something that I'm just unaware of. Cut to later that evening. Corey Renwald comes over to Clark Kent's apartment to identify himself as the boy the Kents had taken in years before Clark came along. Now, you're nodding your head. You knew this?
Well, because you mentioned the Superboy issue, while you were going through the story, I looked this up, and just a bit of comic book trivia. The Superboy issue 19, where they introduced this character Corey, and I'm sure you'll reveal what all that was about, but it was published or it has the cover date of July 1981.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
so it was published in the summer before the Superman issue. And that's one of the things I love about that time period, when, especially with the Superboy comic and the Superman comic, is that they would sometimes introduce things. I don't think this is the only time they did this, where they introduced elements in the Superboy comic that would then be referenced in Superman, or vice versa. So, they had a little bit of back and forth there, a little bit of continuity between the two titles. So I always enjoyed when DC Comics did that kind of stuff. I
had the feeling that the issue had to have been it couldn't have been something from, say, the 1960s. I had the feeling it had to be something from the current time frame. So thank you for looking that up. That was something that I was just too lazy to do. I mean, the only other light I'm going to shine on this is that Corey had been a delinquent at the time, but the Kents set him on the right path when they took him in. He admits that he was casing Clark's apartment, but he knew that Clark was being set up. It's well known that Clark is, in continuity, it was well known that Clark was one of Superman's closest friends. And Corey figured it was obvious that Superman trusts Clark to store some of his personal effects. So Superman's secret identity is safe because Corey isn't connecting the dots as to why those items would really be in Clark Kent's apartment.
Oh, I have seen that scene. I think posted online before. Yeah. Okay. Now I have the context for that particular scene. That's cool.
Now, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read the last two panels. Corey's talking to Clark. Call me Corey, Clark. After all, you and I could practically call ourselves brothers, considering the two people who shaped our lives. You know, I spent the happiest Christmas of my life with them. And then you see a picture of Mom and Pa Kent in front of the Christmas tree, and Clark says, me too, Corey. Many of them. So that's kind of a nice way to end the story. And this may be the reason why you've seen this page. I own the last page of this book.
Oh my gosh.
And I may have posted about it in talking with our friend Damien, Sleepy Reader 666, online very recently, at least during this calendar year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that conversation sparked my memory about this book, which I have to admit I had never read up until doing it for our show. So I picked this book up in a dollar bin, and it was the first time I had read it, and seeing the page, it's kind of cool seeing a page that you actually own the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I chose this book.
And once again, I'm jealous of you, George.
Really quick, they do have a letters page in here, and I know you and I kind of like looking at the letters pages. I'm going to go right to it really fast. The Metropolis mailbag. And I'm not going to go into detail for the amount of time. There was basically, they're talking about an issue, a few issues prior, where they showed a rivalry between the Daily Planet and another newspaper, and whoever wrote this letter was happy that they showed the competition between a rival newspaper because they felt that was something that was never really shown in the book before. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I found very interesting is that there was a contest apparently. And here's the response from the editors regarding something that somebody said in the letter about a character named Marilyn. In fact, here, let me read that part really quick. So the letter writer says, Rich Buckler did a nice job on the art. Lana didn't look like a redheaded Lois, and Marilyn Thomas looked real. Really real. I wonder if any of those T-shirts Superman autographed will ever get washed. So a really quick reference to this character. But then in the response, the editor says, and by the way, Tim, the reason Marilyn Thomas looked really real is because she is. Marilyn won a contest run for Warner Communications employees, and the prize was an appearance in a Superman story.
Oh, cool.
And since she works in our company's store, the Warner Corner, her Earth One counterpart was giving the same job at the Galaxy. So that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Little tidbits of information that you would be lost to history. I mean, somebody reading it at the time would go, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, 35 years later, who cares, when they read the comic. So I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to call out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as fans of comics, it is interesting to see that the first great issue of Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew was solicited at the bottom of the letters page, and it was available, get this, Eric, on December 24th.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Little present from DC Comics back then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So on December 24th. Yeah.
So George, I'm glad we're ending with Marvel this time because even though I'm more prone to want to talk about DC Comics because they're kind of my favorite, this holiday special comic, the Merry X-Men Holiday Special, which came out last year, not only are there some really interesting bits of Christmas-related stories in here, but it is also done in a very different way than I think I've seen most of these kind of anthology-type comic books, let alone holiday-themed comic books, because the frame of the story is Jubilee gets kidnapped on her way to Hawaii. The rest of the comic is a day in December. So each page is a day. and we get to see not only several times throughout the book what Jubilee and this baby, and I will right up front, I'll say I know next to nothing about X-Men continuity. So I don't know who that baby is.
They don't explain it?
I don't know why she has this baby.
Okay, so here's a perfect example of the difference between a comic from the time that I was talking about with Superman and this comic you're talking about now. So you're telling me that you, after reading that comic, you have no idea who that baby is.
I don't know if it's her baby. I don't know if it's just a child that she has taken on the care for. I don't know. And
not only were there things in there that I'm not quite sure I pointed out so much, but I'm going to point them out in my next book. If that was the first Superman book that you ever picked up, and really, for all intents and purposes, you and I were even mentioning it, it was the first Superman book that I've picked up in a very long time out of the current continuity. So in essence, it was my first Superman book in a long time because I don't remember it. So of course we all know Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, and to a certain extent people know Lana Lang. But a lot of these other things, especially the WGBS aspect of it, I remember that happened. But a lot of these things were explained within the text of the book and didn't leave much for you to guess at. And it's going to be the same thing and even more pronounced in the book I'm going to have later. So this goes to show a failure on the part of current comics. And for as much as old guys like me might complain about that, it's true because you just proved it. Here's a comic that it's a special. If somebody saw it on a rack somewhere, it might have attracted attention because of the holiday feature. I mean, what was on the cover? I seem to remember when this was being solicited in one of our previous episodes, we talked about it.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, we did indeed talk about this.
Yeah, and I didn't purchase it, so I was very happy to hear that this was one of your comics that we were going to talk about today.
Yeah, so this is a cover by David Nakayama. Very nicely done picture of. It's got Jean Grey. Is that right? Mm-hmm. This is how I reveal my lack of X-Men knowledge. I always think of her as Marvel Girl, or some people would refer to her as Phoenix. I assume that's her. She has red hair. And then obviously it's obvious that it's Rogue that she's sitting next to. And I believe that's Gambit next to her. But then in the background outside through the window, you see Jubilee, Iceman. I think that's Storm, Nightcrawler. They're all kind of having fun out there in the snow, frolicking in the snow. But it's a lovely cover. It actually reminds me a bit of Arthur Adams. Not Arthur Adams. Is that who I'm thinking of? I don't remember. Okay. The guy who paints his covers all the time. Not Alex Ross, but the other one. Anyway, lovely cover. But like I said, it's each day has its own page, and we get various X-Men characters with their one-page story to give us some nugget of information or a character moment or some sort of connection to Christmas. And so I wanted to highlight some of those. But like I was saying, Jubilee she's got looks like 5 different days that she appears in. So we get that thread of running through, well, what is the overall plot of this thing? So like I said, she's kidnapped. Okay. And at first you don't know why. She's just kidnapped. And then we get to the story. And this is where I mentioned before where, I was going to bring in a Hanukkah bit of story on December 2nd, the second story. I even hesitate to call these stories. They're snippets. They're slices. They're not really stories, but you get this one page. It's a splash page actually, which is rare in this particular book, of Kitty Pryde here with her dragon. Oh boy, I've forgotten the name of the dragon.
Oh, Lockheed.
Thank you, Lockheed. Yes. Okay. And she's about to light the menorah. And what's interesting about this is that she is, and this, like I said, this came out last year, and I don't know what's happened since then in X-Men continuity, but in here it says she tells us, in those great caption boxes that you were referring to in the Superman comic, I'm Kate, and it's not even Kitty. She's now calling herself Kate.
That's true.
I'm Kate Pryde, leader of the X-Men. I'm done dancing on the sidelines of history, saving our planet from the shadows. The time's come to make a real difference. In the name of those who died here, in defiance of those who, and so this is, I believe it's Genosha? Yeah. So she's on Genosha, which is there. That was the site of a mutant massacre. In defiance of those who ordered them killed, I'm going to save the world the right way. And the best way to do that, I figure, no matter how long it takes or how hard the journey, is to run for president. And so I will concede your point to a point about, not having all the information in a book like this, because this makes me very interested to find out what happened to this.
The funny thing is that even if something was going to happen, in the middle of the year, they gave the reins to the entire X-Men universe to Jonathan Hickman, who's totally upended everything. I haven't read any of it yet, but I mean, from solicits that you and I have discussed on your previous shows, we see what she's doing on this Marauders team, and she's not running for president.
Yeah, I'm sure. I figured that particular plot point was probably abandoned, but it made me very curious, I guess, to see what they did with that, if anything.
Yeah.
And boy, and then also to extrapolate it to its conclusion, having an X-Man be president. I mean, that would be an interesting turn in the Marvel universe, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially her.
It'd be even better than when DC made Lex Luthor president of the United States.
Yes, a lot better. Or like when America made Lex Luthor the president. No, I'm
exactly.
Sorry. Yeah. Anyway,
I was thinking the same thing. Okay. Wonder that, and I just want to mention, I'm not going to name I don't think I'm going to name everybody that's doing all these things, because there's a lot of people involved here. You can go look up the issue, but that, like I said, that splash page of Cape Pride and Lockheed was done by Terry and Rachel Dotson with Chris Sotomayor on the colors. But I love that work. The next one I wanted to highlight, again, it's one pages, or these are one page things. This is Nature Girl. And I had no idea who that is. I didn't know there was a Nature Girl in the X-Men universe. Who is this? I don't know this character. But the title of this, George, is I Hate Christmas. So, there's a connection there, direct connection there for me.
She's won you over already.
Right.
You're on Team Nature Girl.
So this is, she says, I hate, I want to read the whole thing, but I won't. I hate Christmas. I always have. This time of year, we always focus on how it brings people together. Everyone talks about feeling warmth despite the chilly air, the unavoidable spirit of giving, blah, 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 blah. But she says nobody cares to listen. If you do, nature will tell you a different story about the holidays, about a different kind of chill, about families being torn apart. So yeah, I have a reason to hate Christmas. And here's the turn. Because all I hear are the screams of slowly dying trees. Oh man, that just a knife in the heart and twists it, right? But it's effective, I hate Christmas. I love it.
Okay, now I know what I'm getting you for Christmas. Team Nature Girl T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. That was actually one of my favorite little days out of this comic. There's another Hanukkah related and menorah sighting in this book too.
Menorah sighting.
This is the Impossible Enemy starring Magneto.
Okay.
Or according to Stan Lee, it's Magneto.
Oh.
At least I heard him say that once. But
okay, fun fact: I called him Magneto forever.
Oh, really?
In my head, when you're reading and you're not saying it out loud, like I've mispronounced many other characters' names and many creators' names to this day. But I think it wasn't until the 1992 cartoon where I heard it said Magneto. So it wasn't the X-Men movies. It was that cartoon. So by the time that came out, I was already in my mid-20s, having read X-Men comics for at least 10 years, always mispronouncing it. Well,
it's funny because I always, in my head, pronounced it Magneto.
It's funny how, it's just weird how we do things.
So wait, since we're on this tangent.
Yes.
Submariner or Submariner?
Submariner.
See, that's how I pronounced it too. But again, I heard Stan Lee once refer to it as submariner because you wouldn't say, I don't know. I don't know. I was just gonna say you wouldn't say mariner, but you would say marine. So I don't know. But here we have Magneto.
Magneto.
It's set in Warsaw. Looks like he's just defeated some sort of robot, maybe a sentinel type thing, that was threatening these two young boys. And he's like, come with me. I will teach you to protect yourself. But the boys see a lighted menorah, which to them that's indicative of, a miracle or a potential miracle, right? And Magneto is what, pontificating. What is there to celebrate, to commemorate? For us, for mutants, the struggle is ongoing. And the little boy says, no, you're wrong, Magneto. Now I want to say Magneto all the time. Wrong. Think of what Hanukkah represents. A small band of the faithful faced an impossible enemy. And even though the Jews were outnumbered, even though they did not stand a chance, they drove their enemies from the land. And once the battle was done, once the Holy Temple was reclaimed, and Magneto says, I know the stories, and perhaps you're right. So even Magneto can learn a thing or two.
Huh. But now I'm a little curious. What's going on with Jabelli?
It took me a second there. Well, it's funny you say that. So here on, I wasn't going to mention this, but here on December 11th, Jubilee is running through this. The story is called, or the snippet is called "Deck the Malls," and so she has the baby in a shopping cart, and she's running through this mall, running from these robotic replicas of some Marvel superheroes. The Thing is there, Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Man, Captain America, Wolverine, Iron Man. They're all after her. And then a couple days later, we see here in The Gift That Keeps on Giving. I thought this was kind of cute. This is done by Chip Zdarsky. Everything done by Chip Zdarsky. Nightcrawler comes to Old Man Logan, who's chopping a tree up using his claws in the forest, and he gives Logan a present. And the present, what we see next is, Nightcrawler says, I just wanted to remind you of the important things in life, the most beautiful things, the way you once did for me. And then we see this little one-panel flashback from X-Men King Size Annual Volume 1, Number 4, where Wolverine, who's chawing down on what I presume is a giant turkey leg at the holidays, and has given Nightcrawler a picture of himself. And so then we come back to the present, and Nightcrawler has given Logan a picture of himself. I just thought that was cute.
That's good.
I love the tie to the previous continuity. Mm-hmm. Day 18. Again, here's another X-Men I did not know about. Glob Herman. Are you familiar with this character?
Is that the one where you can see through him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Show George here in the video. I never knew this X-Man, but this is cute because we see this. It's just a few panels, and then at the top, and then a large panel at the bottom to show the gag. Basically, you see this guy Glob hanging up some mistletoe, and then he puts a chair down and he sits down. And it's just him sitting underneath the mistletoe at the door where people will have to exit out of. It's just, but the way it's drawn, it makes it look like he has a smile on his face, but it's such a sad little bit, but that also, to me, that's the holidays, right? I mean, it's not all fun and light, right. for all of us. The holidays can sometimes be a little dark and lonely and depressing. Yeah. As Nature Girl has already illuminated for us. Back to Jubilee, December 20th. All I Want for Christmas Is You. There's all these death traps that she's navigating through this, again, in this mall with the baby, and she's successfully doing so. So, there's something's going on in this mall. Why is she there? We don't know yet. But then, so I'm almost done here. Just a couple more. This is one of my other favorites in here. This is Day 22, Blue Christmas. Okay. I'm sure maybe you can guess which character based on that title this is about.
Well, didn't we already see this character? Or no, is it somebody else who's blue?
Yeah.
Furry and blue.
No, yeah.
Furry and blue.
Furry and blue, yes, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
So this is Hank McCoy.
Yes.
The Beast. And so he's apparently he's gone home to visit the folks. And so what we see here is him in his old room that his parents have kept the same since he left back when he was just a young pup. And he can hear them talking about him. And for example, he looks healthy, right? One of them says, I don't know, Edna. Every time he comes home, he looks like a different person. That's how it is for everyone with kids, Norton. They're never the same person twice. Aunt Polly asked him what happened to his kitty cat nose back when the Beast would look more like a cat than what he does now. I hoped he might bring someone home for Christmas this year. I hate to think of him alone. You know, he's never alone. He's got all his ex-people. That's not the same, and you know it. I guess I always thought we'd have grandchildren by now. Furry blue ones? Norton! And then they call up, Hank, honey, hurry up or we'll be late for church. And he's just looking, Hank looks very sad. Again, maybe these things are revealing something about me, George, because I seem to be glomming onto the sad ones more than the happy ones. But it was just a very poignant and kind of sad little story.
Isn't that what this time of year is all about?
That like I said, yeah.
I see why you're not too happy about it.
Well, there's another reason for that, but I won't bore the listeners with that tale. Okay. But I will end with this one, George. Here we are, December 25th, and this is the whole point of the Jubilee thing. This is Arcade walking in a winter murderland, and this is a several-page story. It's not a one-page thing. Mm-hmm. And basically, what's happened is that these owners, I guess, of a mall somewhere, for some reason, hired him to design a fully immersive way for families to enhance their holiday shopping experience. Huh. But what Arcade did is created a murder mall. So in his mind, he did exactly what they wanted him to do, but he, added a bit of flair to it. Yeah. And decided to how does he say here? He was testing the whole premise by kidnapping Jubilee and putting her in the murder mall, having her go through all the, basically run the gauntlet of everything that he designed. And of course, the mall owners are aghast. One of them, once he realizes, and we actually see a few scenes here on the video screen of Jubilee dealing with various things like a giant hamster, like a radioactive hamster or something. I don't know. I guess a zombie Santa as well. And so once Arcade shows the video and showing it's Jubilee, one of the owners, this gentleman, we find out after Jubilee storms in and beats up Arcade, just as Storm and Nightcrawler show up to rescue her, we find out from the guy that his daughter is a big fan of the X-Men, and so he called them. Their number's in the book. And Christmas is done.
There you go. And their number's in the book. I like that. They didn't look on the internet. It's in the book.
Well, no, I'm sorry. He does say the numbers on the school's website. So
okay.
that just shows how old school I am. I think of the telephone book. I really enjoyed this Merry X-Men holiday special. That was quite a fun little experiment they did.
And I do remember us talking about that when it was solicited and trying to figure it out, because they did say it was going to be a page a day pretty much.
Yeah.
And now I haven't read that, and you've actually made me interested in reading it. It makes me think about what Marvel did this year with their Marvel Comics number 1000 and 1001, where each story in there was a one-page story.
That's right.
And I was kind of questioning how it would be, but number 1000 was actually pretty good, and number 1001 was also good. So they have found an effective way to tell good one-page stories. I mean, I wouldn't do it all the time, but
no, they shouldn't.
the one you just described and the two from this year, I mean, I enjoyed those two, so maybe I'll dig this one up. Now, if you don't mind me asking, since those last two you talked about were modern books, like that Rugrats one I was talking about was $7.99. How much were the two that you talked about?
Well, the X-Men one was $4.99.
Mm-hmm.
And the DC Holiday Special is basically double the size. So it was $9.99.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, I have gone down memory lane again, Eric, for my Marvel comic. And if anybody has been familiar with our past Christmas Gab Bags on Long Box Review for the past 2 years, you would know that we have covered 3 of the 4 major team-up books that the Big Two have put out. Last year, we covered Marvel 2-in-1. The previous year, we covered an issue of DC Comics Presents and The Brave and the Bold, which of course leaves Marvel Team Up. And I have Marvel Team Up number 127 with a March 1983 cover date, released around the 1982 holiday season with a 60-cent cover price. And the team up is Spider-Man and the Watcher. The cover is by Ed Hannigan and Al Milgrom, and the cover declares special Christmas issue. And it's just the Watcher standing in the background with his arm extended and Spider-Man swinging in the air, and you just see snow falling. There's snowfall. So you know it's a Christmas issue. It says it right there on the cover. You see the snow. It sets the mood. On the back cover, there's an ad for the Super Cobra video game for Atari, and from Parker Brothers. And on the inside front cover, there are models based on Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. The writer is J.M. Now here's another name that I think I've mispronounced all my life until I think I've heard, like, even on a podcast like yours. G.M. DeMatteis. Mm-hmm. He's the writer. Kerry Gemmel is the penciler. Mike Esposito is the inker. Rick Parker on letters, Glynis Wein is the colorist, and Tom DeFalco is the editor. And this is the time of the editor-in-chief being Jim Shooter. You know, I just noticed. Glynis Wein. Would that be like Len Wein's wife or some sort of relative?
I think so.
Yeah, oh, okay. Interesting. I don't know why I never put 2 and 2 together until right now. See it on the page. We open with a splash page of Spider-Man swinging over the hustling, bustling New York City streets on Christmas Eve, and we know it's Christmas Eve, not only because the omniscient narrator missing from, that we've been talking about is missing from comics today, not only because that narrator is telling us so, but because it is displayed in its own caption box with beautiful calligraphy. And if you don't mind, I would like to read the first page. The winter winds are bitter. Soot stains the snow even before it touches the ground, and yet there is something special in the air this December night. Some ineffable magic that informs the hearts of true believers and ardent cynics alike that it can only be Christmas Eve. Oh, I added myself. I don't know if you knew that, but this is a night for love and remembrance and great joys and small miracles, which is the title of the issue. But the shoppers hurrying home to surreptitiously wrap their last-minute purchases aren't thinking of such things just yet. And neither is the Amazing Spider-Man. You know, Marvel and DC both did this from time to time, but in the background on a billboard, as Spider-Man is swinging through the streets, there's a billboard for Epic Magazine, which is one of Marvel Comics magazines. So, they do stuff like this all the time in comics.
Yeah, Marvel in particular was really good about that.
So Spidey swings to his house and gets out of his costume. So grad student, freelance photographer, and all-around swell guy Peter Parker can visit his Aunt May and drop off the presents for her fiancé Nathan. Now, I gotta admit, I forgot that there was a fiancé Nathan.
Yeah.
And their housemates. Now, he had all the presents in a web on like a web backpack on his back. So as he enters the house, we are introduced to all the senior citizen housemates by name. So again, this is, like you said, you don't even know who that baby was that Jubilee is carrying around. We can only guess it's hers, right? But we don't even know. And here, within a panel or two, we are introduced to all the characters, and we kind of get a sense of who's who, like who's the jokester, who's the gruffy old man, things like that in a very short period of time. So you get an idea of who these characters are, who, some of these characters you're not going to see again in this book just because they're just peripheral. So again, for somebody who hasn't read Spider-Man in this context in a very long period of time, in essence, this is kind of my first experience. Like, for instance, I didn't know Aunt May was engaged. I probably knew at the time, but I don't know it now. they're setting the tone, they're introducing these characters, and they're letting us know who they are. So current comic book creators, listen up. Every comic book that you write could potentially be somebody's first. Make sure you identify who these people are. Comic book 101. Not like you need to hear from a podcaster like me. So anyway, I have a couple of favorite scenes here. So when one character, Rose, so to give you an idea of the characterization, which I love in comics, when Rose tells Victor he's not decorating the Christmas tree properly, he says, "Hey, do me a favor, Rose," and I'm adding my own little inflection here. Of course, he's smoking a cigar, as you could probably imagine. "Hey, do me a favor, Rose. Go suck on a candy cane and leave me alone." So, you don't get that kind of stuff anymore. I don't know. Then Peter gets molested by two old ladies who set him up under the mistletoe. My Peter, you devil, you. or actually, should we blame these women who are molesting Peter? I mean, yeah, it's pretty funny.
It sounds like Glob Herman took a page out of their book.
Yeah. On page 4, as everyone gets a little tipsy and sings and dances, Peter notices that Mr. Chekhov, who is usually the life of the party, he's sitting in a corner in a Santa suit looking out the window, kind of, longingly on this snowy Christmas Eve night. So he tells Peter that he was hoping that his granddaughter would show up. From the tone of the writing, it seems like they've been estranged since Mr. Chekhov's son, Walter. Now, I thought of you immediately because his name is Chekhov.
Right.
The son's name was Walter. Little Star Wars reference there.
Star
I
Trek.
mean, Star Trek. Did I say Star
Wars?
George,
come
on. Oh, my God. I'm so... Okay,
Jeez.
Episode's over. Play us out. Sorry, man. Rise of Skywalker, C-3PO, R2-D2 taking over. I'm sorry.
I know what it is, George. I know. It's those Disney ninjas.
Yeah. Oh, I am forced to make a callback every so often to a Star Wars episode, and I was way overdue in this long episode. You don't know what it's like to have one of those nunchucks like swinging around your head. You never know when it's going to hit. So where was I? Something's been going on ever since his son and his daughter-in-law died in a plane crash a few years ago. Peter tries to cheer him up a bit, and being that Mr. Chekhov is normally the life of the party, Peter says, "Hey, why don't you recite one of your famous poems to everybody here?" So Mr. Chekhov, of course, gets up, and I guess he's famous for one of his odes, so he does that. And then all of a sudden, Peter's spidey sense goes haywire. So he leaves the party to try to find the source of what was warning him, and all of a sudden he walks into a strange blizzard. The blizzard wasn't there 2 seconds ago. And all of a sudden, he's not dressed in his Peter Parker normal clothes anymore. He's in his Spider-Man outfit. So
of course,
magically, he's engulfed in a blizzard. He's in his Spider-Man outfit, and as the snow dies down, Peter is standing in front of none other than the character called the Watcher. Here's something that, maybe at the time I would have realized and it wouldn't have surprised me, but Spider-Man has no idea who the Watcher is.
That seems kind of bizarre.
Yeah, so I tried to put things in context. What did I say? This was 81, 82. So the Marvel Universe is only maybe 20 years old at the time. The Watcher, sure, he appeared in Fantastic Four, and I don't know what else was going on at this particular time. I mean, you haven't had things like Infinity Gauntlet or a lot of these cosmic stories that now we just take for granted, but maybe there would be no reason for Spider-Man to ever meet the Watcher. So who knows? But anyway, he doesn't know who the Watcher is. And for those who don't know, the Watcher is part of a race of people who oversees cosmic everything in the cosmos, and they'll watch everything from the mundane to the cosmic, big cosmic events that affect the entire universe. But they are sworn not to interfere. All they do is watch, like their name says. But this Watcher, our Watcher, who watches the Earth, has intervened from time to time in Marvel Comics. So the Watcher doesn't speak to Spider-Man, but gives him a jewel. And in the jewel, Mr. Chekhov's granddaughter's face appears. And then the Watcher disappears. And after wondering if he was just visited by the ghost of Christmas past, or maybe he had too much eggnog, Spider-Man decides to embark on a desperate mission to find Mr. Chekhov's granddaughter, Betty. So now we switch to the Watcher's home on the blue area of the moon. And not only is he watching Spider-Man, but he talks to us. And he explains who he is. And he switches the view to Mrs. Chekhov wandering the city streets, cold and afraid. And the Watcher explains, and I'll quote, "But now I find myself again drawn to help. For the threat is no less deadly than the overmind, no less awesome than Galactus. This woman, this child, is the focal point. So if anybody knows comics, to compare this woman walking the city streets a little destitute to Galactus and the Overmind,
Yeah,
we might be adding a little too much drama here, but
perhaps.
this is so in 8 pages, Eric. Again, something that's totally different than comics today. Not only has the plot of this one and done story been set, but we know the characters, even if we've never picked up a Marvel comic before. Again, I kind of got the personality of Aunt May's fiance. We got the seniors. We know that there's a problem with this woman here. We've met the Watcher. He's explained who he is to us. We can move forward with this story for the next 2/3 of the book. Spider-Man uses a payphone. Kids, when we didn't have phones in our pockets, there were these items that stood on these poles in the middle of streets at places where you would put coins in, and you would actually dial the number of who you wanted to call. There was this thing called directory assistance. So Spider-Man calls directory assistance. And this was kind of like that ancient thing that you folks have heard about, kids. It was called movie phone, when you would call the number and they would tell you what movies were playing. Well, you would call this number and you would say, hey, I need the phone number of so-and-so, and they would give it to you. Eric, do you remember those old days?
I do, actually.
So Spider-Man uses a payphone, and he calls directory assistance to try to find her at Betty's address. You know something? If you'll indulge me, I know this is a long episode, but these Gab Bag episodes are long. I want to read the exchange really quick. Spider-Man is yelling into the phone for the 10th time. That's Chekov, Chekhov. And then the person on the other end of the phone goes, Shmerkov? Chekhov, as in ensign. See, there's your Star Trek reference.
Yep.
And then the person on the other end of the phone goes, Ensign? I thought you said the name was Shmekov. The caption says, it takes persistence and well springs of patience, but the much-needed information is finally extracted. Then, after a fitting farewell, so then you see the phone off the hook, and the person on the other side of the phone goes, now there's no reason to be that rude, young man. I think Spidey gave him a little what for before he left.
little New York attitude.
Mm-hmm. Spider-Man arrives at Betty's apartment, and it's a crime scene. Betty's roommate has been murdered, and there has been a lot of cocaine found in the apartment. So already we know, you know what? Let's not compare her to Galactus and the Overmind anymore. After a heated exchange with a detective who keeps calling Spidey Buddy Boy, you have to remember back then, well, even maybe now, the law enforcement didn't take too kindly to people like, especially Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So Spider-Man's arrival already made Spider-Man a suspicious and a suspect and a person of interest, just for the very fact that he showed up on the scene. So Spidey leaves the scene to regroup on a nearby rooftop, trying to figure out the meaning of all this, and you cue a cameo. It's a 2-page cameo by Captain America. So all of a sudden, Captain America shows up. And he just happened to be in the neighborhood. And I think actually maybe they were in Brooklyn Heights, and I don't know if maybe at the time Captain America's area was Brooklyn Heights. Maybe Steve Rogers lived in Brooklyn Heights. That part I don't remember. But he saw Spider-Man on the rooftop, and he was wondering why he was there. And, you know, it's Christmas Eve. Why is Spider-Man hanging up on a rooftop here in Brooklyn Heights? Spidey explains the odd events that led him here, and Cap convinces him to press on, saying your methods may be a bit unorthodox, but you're no quitter. And, of course, Captain America offers his assistance, but Spider-Man feels this is a mission he must complete on his own, so they exchange Merry Christmas pleasantries, and they part ways. So that was a little bit of an interlude there. You get another cameo, another superhero in there to give Spidey the confidence to move forward. And, of course, the Watcher notices this, and he's happy that Spider-Man has found this new strength, and he says that Spider-Man is going to be rewarded. So Spider-Man's Spidey sense draws his attention to the jewel which the Watcher left with him, and he sees a view of this place called Jimmy's Corner, and we find out it's the sleaziest bar in Lower Manhattan. So unfortunately, when Spider-Man gets there to ask people if they know who this woman is, none of those questionable patrons have any information that Spider-Man can use. The problem is, if only he had known that in a room upstairs, Betty was up there yelling at a street tough named Buck, who gave her and her roommate stolen cocaine, and it was stolen from the mob. So while Betty was on the rooftop enjoying the snow, some hitmen came to her apartment and killed her roommate. Buck thinks Betty's going to blab to the mob, and he wants to take care of what he considers a loose end. So as he draws a knife on her, and she's begging for her life, and the tension mounts in the last panel on page 15, I turn page 15, and I have this anticipation of what's going to happen. What's going to happen to Betty? And what it was I greeted with? Magneto, Dr. Octopus, and Dr. Doom outside a frosted window singing Deck the Halls with Marvel Comics. Already, this high-tension scene, I'm taken out of the high-tension scene because I see these three guys outside a window singing Deck the Hall with Marvel Comics. And there's a full-page ad of big savings on annual subscriptions to your favorite Marvel Comics. So it was kind of like a weird and funny juxtaposition there. So again, old-time ad.
I thought perhaps you would have regaled us with another Hostess cupcake ad or something.
How funny would that have been? I wish. Now, we get back into the story, and of course, Spider-Man arrives in time, takes out the hoodlum, but Betty runs off, and she takes the cocaine with her. Another, of course, she had been followed by the mobsters. They followed her because they felt that she was going to lead them to the big boss, but now they know Spider-Man's up there, so they figure Spider-Man's taking care of that guy, so they follow her into a dead end, and they want to finish her off, and Spider-Man catches up to them and saves her, but as he's beating them up, she runs off again, only to be met by the mobster who's left behind.
Oh, jeez.
And he shoots her. Now, Spider-Man takes the guy out and shouts to the heavens, "Why did this person make me do this?" Not knowing that's the Watcher, he says, "Why did you make me do this?" And then all of a sudden the Watcher appears. So Spider-Man, it just gets frustrated because the Watcher doesn't talk to him. He throws the jewel at him, and it magically veers off to a wall on the right of him, and it bursts, and all this shimmering dust that falls over Betty improves her breathing. So it's kind of making her a little better, but she still needs to get to the hospital. Spider-Man takes her to the hospital, yet somehow he changed into his Peter Parker clothes, unless the Watcher did it for him, because he arrived at the hospital as Peter Parker and brought Betty in. And Peter called the senior home where everybody lived to let her grandfather know that she was in the hospital. They get reunited. It's kind of a touching moment. She kind of admits that she hasn't been herself ever since her parents died. And they leave it there. So it's just the grandfather and the granddaughter in the hospital bed. They're reconnecting. And Peter goes outside. And he looks at the full moon in the sky and he says, "I don't know who you are or why you did it, but thanks." And on the last page, the Watcher conveniently is talking to himself and, in a way, breaking the fourth wall and talking to us. To be honest with you, Eric, I know I'd be talking to myself if I were alone by myself on the blue area of the moon. I don't know about you, but I'd be talking to myself too. So in this epilogue, the Watcher explains, after consistently watching events of cosmic importance, he chose this night of all nights, Christmas Eve, because it's so special, to reach out and be as a brother to mankind, even though the event he chose was small and insignificant on a cosmic scale. And if I may read the last panel, "I have seen infinity revealed within a single human heart. I am humbled, and I know joy." And then, of course, the next issue. Next, who else but Captain America? On the letters page, which is called Web Zingers, there were letters about issue number 122 with the Man-Thing. And like you said, that you like how comics will bring continuity together. And I seem to recall that J.M. DeMatteis, when he took over for Marvel Team Up, he started bringing in these like Z-list villains to come in. Cause for these one-off issues, you're not going to bring in Dr. Octopus or Dr. Doom or something like that. It's usually one of these really obscure characters. And he had taken a lot of them. And this one from issue number 122 in particular from the Defenders, because he was writing the Defenders. And the Defenders sometimes always ran into some really obscure, weird villain with weird powers or weird motivations. So whoever, I think his name was Ian Fate, was the villain in issue number 122. So there were a lot of letters of people saying that they liked exactly what you like. You bring these characters in from another run to put them in this comic to say, whatever happened to that character? Oh, there he is. Let's add another little layer to him here in one of these team-up books. And there was a little ad, and you may appreciate this because of you like the history of both companies. There was a little ad of the Watcher sitting in a chair with a blanket over him, reading an issue of the Marvel official handbook of the Marvel Universe.
I've seen that ad, yeah.
And he says something like, in fact, let me look at it really quick. He says, I didn't know that. I must have blinked. So, I mean, that's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like that one.
They also had a bullpen bulletins in this one. And just to put it in context to history, am I pronouncing this right? I think I've heard you guys on your show talk about this. David Michelini? Is that how you pronounce his name?
I think so, yeah.
I think I've heard either you or Peter pronounce it that way. Well, he had filled in for Jim Shooter in the bullpen bulletins. And one of the things that he wrote about was he was complaining that writers get no love at conventions. So, I mean, this would carry over today, right? And
oh, my gosh.
His quote was, "Do you see fans asking writers to do a paragraph for them?" And it got me to thinking, okay, one of the most popular writers today is Tom King, right? So what is Tom King doing? He's drawing on blank sketch covers.
Right. He's very poorly drawing.
But he's not writing paragraphs. He's drawing. So even to this day, 35, 36 years later, whatever, writers are not getting the love at conventions.
I don't know. I see awful lot of people, and myself included, going to these cons and getting in line to have the writers of these stories, of these books, sign them for us because, you know, their contribution to the comic means so much to us.
But you're not asking them to write a paragraph.
Nope. That would just be rude.
Yes, it would. And just some, they had the little solicitations box. So some solicitations of note, especially for your comics historians out there. New Mutants #1 was being solicited. Star Slammers graphic novel by Walt Simonson. So back when Marvel Comics was doing their Marvel graphic novels. The Hulk versus Quasimodo #1. Now, I remember buying this. It was a one-off one-shot, and I think it was a comic adaptation of the new Hulk cartoon at the time. Then they had Marvel Super Special #24, which was an adaptation of The Dark Crystal. Remember when Marvel would do movie
I
adaptations
remember that one.
a lot?
Yep.
Yeah. And Bizarre Adventures #34 with lots of Yuletide fear. So just put things in context as to what was going on back then with our favorite comics. Well, that's this year's Christmas Gab Bag.
Yeah, that was some lovely blasts from the past there, George.
Yeah, in fact, in the show notes, I'm going to have to tell people to sit by the fireside because they're going to hear all these 6 stories that we just told. Well, that we just relayed that other people wrote, but still, they got to hear 6 very, very nice holiday stories, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, even more so because you had multiple ones for each of those big
That's right.
books. So I hope you got your money's worth, folks.
Well, and you know, if people want to seek out the DC and the Marvel books, there's a bunch that I didn't talk about. So you know, I only highlighted a few out of both of those books. So
well, this was great. Thanks for letting us do this on my show this year.
Well, thanks for inviting me to do it with you. This is awesome.
I mean, to me, this is a nice post-Christmas. Everybody's kind of like basking in the glow of the holidays. Maybe the post-holiday blues that I usually get might be settling in right now. So hearing these tales of holiday joy and maybe a little emotion might be getting to people. And I hope we're helping to carry this over into the new year for you.
Well, yeah, it'd be a nice little thing to tide you over.
Yeah.
Before the next big holiday, which will be St. Valentine's Day.
Yeah. What are we going to? Will you come back for a Valentine's Day Gab Bag?
Given the soap opera-esque nature of superhero comic books, we kind of get that every issue.
Yeah, pretty much. We could pick up any random one, and there's going to be some sort of thing pulling at our heartstrings.
Yeah.
Eric, thanks for coming in this week. I really appreciate it, especially as, you know, folks, we were just joking around. You know, it's not really summertime at all. It's we're getting close to Eric's birthday and my birthday. So, Eric, happy birthday to you. Actually, when this posts, it's going to be your birthday.
It will be the day before, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
If you're doing the 28th, and your birthday will have already passed, so happy birthday to you, George.
Thank you. And I'm not going to give away my age, but all I'm going to say is it's a very important number in DC Comics. I'm not going to say any more.
Surely not that one.
Yes, that one. Can't give it all away, Eric. I have to let some people hunt.
Yep.
Eric, please remind everybody where to find Longbox Review.
All righty. Well, as George prompted me before, you can go to longboxreview.com. That's the website where I have all of the podcast episodes listed. And links to various places you can listen to Longbox Review as well. So you can listen to basically with whatever podcatcher of your choice.
Eric, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Folks, Happy New Year to you, too. We hope you had a great Christmas, a great Hanukkah. I know it's Kwanzaa right now. Happy holidays to everybody. So until 2020, I'm George.
And I'm Eric.
Happy New Year.
Holy Happy New Year!